والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن معاوية بن أبي سفيان رضي الله تعالى عنه قال: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من يرد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. صدق الله العظيم. From Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the son of Abu Sufyan, who said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whomsoever Allah is good for, He grants him understanding of the religion. Inshallah, before indulging in today's discussion, I would like to start off with a short little mind game for everybody to play along with. The rules of this game are quite simple. I'm going to give you a word, and I want you to make a list of as many professions, disciplines, subjects, whatever you can think of regarding that word. So the first word, or phrase should I say, is well educated. So I want you to create a list in your mind, just as many different jobs, professions, subjects you can think of. Give you 10 seconds, think of as many as you can. The second word I want to give you is difficult. Again, do the same thing, just think about as many different jobs, professions, disciplines you can think of that you associate difficult with. Now I assume many of us will have listed secular academics such as engineering, becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, becoming a scientist, becoming a mathematician, etc., etc. But our list, I'm pretty sure for most of us, will be made up of only secular academics. How many of us here included becoming an alim deen in our list? How many of us included becoming a scholar of the religion in this list of ours? I don't assume many of us will have done so. And this is one of the problems that we are facing today as a community. We have lost this appreciation for our ulama. And by appreciation, I don't want you to get conflated with respect. Because alhamdulillah, I do believe that as a community, generally speaking, we do respect our ulama. However, when it comes to appreciating the struggles that an alim deen must go through, not only on a physical level, but on a mental level too, this is forgotten. Before continuing, I would just like to firstly present what a true alim deen entails. According to my limited research, wherein I asked a few learned people, I read a few web pages and forums and articles online, and checked a few sources to find some historic understandings of the definition. I believe that the perfect amalgamation of them all would lead to us having the following definition. First and foremost, there must be understanding of the rulings of the Sharia. Now, don't get this mixed up with regurgitating. For example, if somebody memorizes Bahari Sharia verbatim, this does not mean that they are an alim deen. However, if somebody is able to understand and explain the rulings in Bahari Sharia, then they have met this first condition. Secondly, they must be able to understand the source directly. Meaning, in order to understand the rules, they must be able to understand the source. Therefore, they must be able to understand directly the Quran and the Sunnah. And thirdly, they must have reached such a level of proficiency and competency in the Islamic sciences whereby they have reached an advanced level and are able to teach it unto others. Now, to reach this level of expertise in as many subjects as the true ulama study is no easy feat. Just to name a few of the sciences that are studied by the ulama, it includes fiqh, usul fiqh, hadith, usul hadith, tafsir, usul hadith, usul tafsir, sarf, nahaw, balagha, seerah, and then some of the more mentally taxing, rationally demanding subjects such as ilm al-mantiq, ilm al-mirah, ilm al-kalam. This is just 13 that I've listed right here, and there are more. And to think that an alim deen must become an expert in every single one of these is no easy feat. Yet, let's look at our community perception. Unfortunately, in our community, we seem to think of Islamic sciences and secular academia as diametrically opposed. We believe one to be right, the other to be left, one to be up, the other to be down. We don't put them in tandem with one another. And this is an example I can give you to show this perception. Is whenever we see a bright child, what do we say? When he'll grow up, he'll grow to become an engineer. Or when she'll grow up, she'll become a doctor. When do we ever say that when he or she will grow up, they'll become a scholar of the religion? Truth is that we have begun to treat our ulama merely as ascetics, not intellectuals. So inshallah today I'd like to help us tackle this perception. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, in one of his poems where he's addressing students and giving them advice, he says, Akhi, my dear brother, لن تنال العلم, you will never gain knowledge, إلا بستة, except with 6, meaning 6 things. سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببياني, I will inform you regarding its details with this phrase or with this sentence. And then he goes on to mention the 6 things. What's the first thing that you think Imam Shafi'i mentioned? The first thing he mentioned is ذكاء. ذكاء means rational sharpness, being sharp-minded, being intelligent, having mental acuity. What is the reason behind this? Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala is telling us that not every individual can become a true alim deen. And the reasoning behind this is because it is very rationally demanding. In the same way we believe secular academics to be rationally demanding, the Islamic sciences too are not just for anybody. You have to be intelligent to be able to grasp the Islamic sciences. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me and fellow aspiring students of knowledge from amongst those who possess this quality of dhaka. And we're back to the point. Imam Shafi'i mentions this, why? Because he himself wanted to draw this into the mind of people, that we don't send every child to go and become a doctor. Why? Because we know that it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the ability to study what is required to become a doctor. In the same way, not everybody can become an alim deen. Now, in order to hit the nail in the head, and given the occasion of this month as well, being the month of Sayyidi Al-Hazrat Imam Ahmad al-Raza radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, today I want to present you a different perspective of Al-Hazrat. We've all heard of Al-Hazrat the Faqih, Al-Hazrat the Mufti, Al-Hazrat the jurist. But we seem to have forgotten Al-Hazrat the polymath, Al-Hazrat the secular academic. And that, inshallah, is today what I'd like to mention before you. I'm going to present to you a couple of examples wherein Sayyidi Al-Hazrat, he uses his secular academic knowledge and he rivals the greats of his era who were experts and had dedicated their lives in these fields. Now the reason I want to do this is because I want to help you understand that Al-Hazrat dedicated his life to studying the deen. However, he became an expert in the secular sciences as a side hobby, as an interest. Now what do we have to take from that? What I'm trying to get at is that we believe that intelligence is only found within the secular sciences. However, if that was the case, then how was Al-Hazrat able to master these sciences in such a short amount of time? It took his entire life trying to study the deen. Now I'm not trying to say that we should treat one as more demanding than the other, but rather I'm presenting this complete opposite of a view so that we can find a centrist position between these two extremes and understand that the value of both is important and that both are equally as demanding and equally as challenging. So the first instance I would like to talk about is Al-Hazrat the psychologist. Now, in the West here, most of us here will have heard of Sigmund Freud. The man responsible behind the psychoanalytical theory in which he presents his tripartite agency, responsible for the actions of responsible for the mind and how it leads a person to perform certain actions. He divides the mind into 3 components: the id, the ego, and the superego. However, let's take a look at his contemporary within the subcontinent, Sayyidi Al-Hazrat Imam Ahmad al-Raza radiyallahu ta'ala. In his own works, he himself forms a similar theory. His personality theory is based upon the concepts of the nafs, the qalb, and the ruh, which map to the 8 ego and superego respectively. However, when do we talk about this? I've never heard anybody mention this. This is our own fault. We have done an injustice to the Imam. We have forgotten his works as a secular academic. Here in the West, Sigmund Freud is revered. Everybody knows him. Whether or not what he has said is scientifically true today or not is a different matter. However, he's accepted as a revolutionary psychologist. We don't say the same about Ala Hazrat, the revolutionary psychologist of the Indian subcontinent. This is a problem. The second example is Ala Hazrat, the physicist. Now, alhamdulillah, we've got Qari up today as well, who is a scientist. So, he, inshallah, if he wishes to, then he should be able to correct me if I'm wrong or add his own expertise, inshallah. Ala Hazrat Imam Ahmad al-Raza, who was asked a question by Dr. Sir Ziauddin. And Dr. Sir Ziauddin later said that regarding this answer, I believe Ala Hazrat deserved a Nobel Prize. What was the question? The question was that before we see the sun rise, how is it that we can see the light of the sun? Meaning we don't see the sun, but we see its light. The same thing, when the sun sets, the sun has set entirely, but we can still see its light. Why is this? Ala Hazrat Imam Ahmad al-Raza dwelled into the deepest corners of physics. He brought in Snell's laws, which are laws regarding the behavior of light and the refraction and reflection of light within certain materials. He mentioned concepts such as refractive index, which talks about the property an object has in relation to a vacuum, meaning air, or space, and how light behaves differently in each of these materials. He also explained certain phenomena which we experience and we know of, such as the illusion of the coin in a beaker, where when you put a coin in a beaker and you fill it with water, we seem to be able to see the coin, but if you take out the water, the coin's in the same place, but we don't see the coin anymore. Again, he explained this using the laws of light. He also explained why when a person is in a desert, they can see a mirage in front of them, wherein there's actually nothing, but it appears to them that there's a pond of water. Again, he explained this using the rules of refraction and reflection of light. Now, again, why do we never talk about this? Why have we disregarded this entire side of Ala Hazrat Imam Raza from our discussions? That is a question for us to ask ourselves. Now, drawing on to today's day and age as well, Sheikh Saeed Fawda, a scholar of today's day and age, he says that it is of utmost importance for modern day scholars to become familiar with modern day sciences. Now, this has many wisdoms behind it, but let's just look at a few. One is quite simple, is to tackle this perception that I presented before, that we believe that intelligence and academia is reserved simply for secular sciences, whereas this is not the case at all. Another is that because once you study the other sciences, you can come to respect another, meaning if you study physics, you can come to understand the subtlety of chemistry. If you study biology, you can come to understand the beauty of physics. In the same way, if you study these sciences, the Islamic sciences make more sense to you as well. When you read verses of the Quran, you start to think of, oh, I remember learning this in school, I remember studying this in science. SubhanAllah, the Quran mentioned this years before scientists figured it out. That's why, and that's another reason why we should become familiar with sciences. And it's also to tell us that secular academia and Islamic studies are not diametrically opposed. In fact, they go hand in hand. They go in tandem with one another. And this is something which we need to, as a community, reinvigorate within ourselves. We need to tell everyone, we need to tell ourselves as well, that no, you should study secular academia, because there's nothing inherently wrong in it, and nor does it contradict the Islamic sciences. Those aspects which are Khilaf Islam, such as certain theories, then of course disregard them, abandon them. However, it doesn't mean you abandon the science as a whole. And nor does it mean that we reserve intelligence and academia to the field of secular studies. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to take heed from these lessons and these examples of Ala Hazrat. But before I finish, I'd just like to present a few lines in praise of Ala Hazrat. In a dark and gloomy age where candlelight would not have sufficed, we received a lantern. In a time where speech would not have preserved our faith, we received an author. In a time where slander of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was prevalent, we received an avid admirer and lover. In a time when we needed a reviver, we received an Ahmad Raza. Subhanallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.